And your winner, Barb, the Little Warrior Honchak.
I like to test myself and see where I am and how I am against other people in the sport. I think that's the real draw for me.
Leslie, the Peacemaker Smith!
I'm pretty lucky that the way that I really enjoy fighting is what fans really like to see. But I really like exciting fights. I really like to stay in there and like stand and bang.
And look at this, right from the opening bell of the round, they are just going at it toe to toe.
No, losing isn't an option. I think if anybody in the sport says losing's an option, that they're not in the right sport. And I'm not gonna quit, I'm not gonna give up, I'm not gonna lighten up. And that's what it's about. It's not about the other person. It's always about me. I'm not gonna quit, I'm not gonna stop, you're not gonna finish me, and that's what it's about for me.
I think at this point I'm pretty well known for my stand-up, and I think that she's gonna come in and she's gonna try. I think she's gonna try to stand with me, and I think she's gonna find out that she can't.
I have trained very hard for this fight. I would be surprised if anybody can train harder than I've trained for this fight. So yes, I'm gonna win December 7th.
But I'll tell you what, nobody is ever, ever gonna forget fighting with me. Ever.
Barb Honchak began her path to the top of Invicta with 2 dominating wins over Aisling Daly and Bethany Marshall.
Militant's fighting systems known for producing champions. Barb Honchak with a championship caliber performance here in round 1. Marshall unable to defend, and there it is! Barb Honchak, the Little Warrior, putting up a big performance here at INVICTA FC.
Honchak then fought for the inaugural flyweight title against #1 flyweight Vanessa Porto. The Little Warrior commanded the cage for 5 rounds to earn the first 125-pound Invicta championship and claim her place as #1. For her first defense, the keenly diligent Barb Honchak will face the unyielding Leslie Smith. Smith's first fight with Invicta was a rousing bantamweight affair with Caitlin Young that brought the Kansas City crowd to its feet.
A phenomenal fight! The best fight I've seen in a long time! What a fight!
But ultimately ended in a draw. Smith would transcend her first performance and finish Young in the rematch. Leslie Smith continued to shine on the Invicta 135-pound stage, walking down Raquel Pennington to win a unanimous decision. Then, Smith suffered a controversial split decision loss to UFC bantamweight Sarah Kaufman. The defeat prompted the brawler to drop to flyweight, where she dismantled Brazilian Muay Thai specialist Jennifer Maia.
She staggered Maia. Now she is a force here at 125 and now continues to take the fight to Maia along the fence.
In her flyweight debut, Leslie, the Peacemaker Smith!
Such a thrilling victory compelled Invicta president Shannon Knapp to make a sudden and unexpected announcement immediately after the fight.
She's going to fight Barb Honchak on the 125.
And that's a very good incentive to stay in this weight class.
The belt resides in the heartland, in Bettendorf, Iowa, overlooking rolling hills of grain and the Mississippi River gliding between 4 cities.
I was very happy at my gym with Steve Berger in St. Louis, but my husband graduated and there were no jobs for him in St. Louis. So the one agreement we made was go ahead and look elsewhere, but I have to have a good gym. Wherever you're going, we have to have a good gym there. And so we looked at a couple places, and he had a really good offer about 40 minutes from the gym that I train at here. He came up to interview for his job, and I came into the gym to check out the gym the same weekend. And I really liked what I saw, and I started talking to a few people around the gym, and I really liked what I heard. So I agreed. I said, okay, let's move up to the northern Illinois, Iowa area and live there for a while. Why not? But it was the best place for him at the time, and actually I think for me it's the best place I could have possibly come.
Barb, she's, you know, really quiet, really humble, you know, I really like those type of fighters, you know, if, you know, you didn't know who she was, you would never assume she was anything other than normal. She kind of has a good balance to her life, you know, she has a good home life with her husband and stuff, and not too needy, you know, not too, you know, she doesn't complain a lot. I mean, I wish I had more fighters with her work ethic. You know, like I said, she's just a good addition to our group. I think that's what separates the world champions like Barb from the rest of the pack is the work ethic, you know. I mean, you could be the same height, the same weight, the same speed. It doesn't matter, you know. You're praying to God, she's praying to God. You could have all those things equally, but who put the most work in? And Barb puts work in every day, you know, 2 times a day, sometimes 3 times a day. You know, Monday through Saturday she's working, and that's what it is. I mean, if you look at our wall, you know, the only thing written on it is the word grind, and she's really good about that. Just every day, just grinding and grinding and grinding. And like I said, that work ethic is what separates all champions, I feel, from the rest of the pack, and Barb is not the exception. And I think that's what's going to separate her, and that's what's going to dictate who wins the fight.
2,000 miles west toward the Pacific on Interstate 80, the challenger grinds away in another renowned fighting school, famous for the tremendous skill and intensity of its champions.
I was working in bars, I was bartending, and you know, serving people a bunch of booze, drinking a bunch of booze myself. Eventually I was like, dude, this just isn't right. There's not integrity in this. I don't feel good about myself getting people unhealthy and encouraging their unhealthiness, and then me being unhealthy myself. I don't want to do it anymore. So I just started being a lot healthier and getting more into nature and doing a lot of hiking. And I ended up at a gym where I found my first MMA team. And I watched them fight, doing their training. They were sparring, I think. I watched for like 10 minutes. And then the coach came over and he was like, what do you think about it? And I was like, it's awesome. I was like, but if I do this, am I really gonna get to hit people as hard as I can? And he was like, yeah. And so I started training, and it was 1 month later that I had my first fight. And I knew that I was training for a fight the whole time. From the time that I walked into the gym, the goal was to fight. It wasn't to hang out with the dudes at the gym, or like, it was to fight. It was the whole reason I walked into the gym. And at that fight, it went really well. I got a knockout and like the standing ovation from the crowd, and it's like, oh, I need to do this 100%. I became a Gracie fighter because I lost a fight, and it made me reflect on how I was training. And I was like, if I'm gonna fight as a pro, I need to train as a pro. I need to have a proper training camp. And I Googled all the different gyms, and I found this one. And so I showed up at this gym and started training. I was doing like the jiu-jitsu classes, I was doing the kickboxing classes, but I hadn't gotten to do the MMA stuff, where they have the fighter trainings where all the fighters come out and they all roll, and it's super hardcore and tough. So I was just sort of standing there watching, thinking about how I was gonna try to put myself in that group, and Nate was like, hey, how's it going? How are you? I'm all, it'd be better if I was on the mat. And he was like, well, hop in. It's hard to just show up here and be like, I'm a Gracie fighter too now. You know, you have to come here and you have to put in the time, and you have to show that you're, you know, you care about the team, and that you want to make other people good, you want to make yourself good. It's kind of a big deal when Caesar claims you as a Gracie fighter.
I really love Leslie as a fighter. I think she's really captured the spirit of what this academy is about. You know, we've had so many great fighters come through this academy, and you know, and speaking with the fans and everything, they've really appreciated how a lot of the fighters out of here fight and how they give it their all. And I think Leslie is just another one that follows in that tradition. She gets in there and she throws caution to the wind, and she just, you know, she just goes for it.
When I went from having it just be something to do for fun and self-defense to when I decided to go into the cage, and I wasn't so sure about it, but I am the kind of person that if something scares me, then I feel like I have to do it. Like that's something I have to conquer, you know, like I need to like break that fear and go do it. But there was one other thing that kind of played into the decision to take that fight. It was the weekend before my wedding. And so I had to ask him, I was like, if I end up with a black guy in our wedding pictures, do you really care? And he said, no, I don't really care. But I also didn't want my mom to know because I knew she wouldn't approve. So, you know, I decided to do it, and I did get an eye poke in that fight, but that was the only damage, is that I had, my eye was really red from a finger poke. And my mom didn't really notice it until I was putting on makeup for the wedding, and she was watching me put on makeup, and she goes, "What happened to your eye?" And I just said, "I'll tell you after the wedding," and I did, and she cried. Her response was, "Why can't you be the ring girl?" Yeah, no, my first fight was definitely more exciting than the wedding. The wedding was exciting, and it was lovely, and it was beautiful, but I don't think there's much that tops your first fight.
There's so much time in life where we're waiting for something, and we miss a lot of moments, right? We dwell on moments, or like we look forward to moments, but like a moment is really just a moment. Sometimes inside the ring, it's like, you know, it'll seem really surreal every now and then. Like, you know, the fighting is going on, and like there's people cheering, and there's all this noise, and there's like the lights, and there's like a camera dude, and like I'm like, dude, this is the moment. You know, I'll do a little like cartwheel inside my head. I'm like, this is what I wanted, and it's happening right now. Ha! This is awesome. I always tell other people that they should really try it. I'm like, dude, you need to get in the ring. And everyone's like, no, you know, that's not for me. And my brother took me to the side one time, and he was like, look, not everybody has the same goals as you. They don't all want to do the same thing as you. You can't be all like, you know, pushy about this. And so I try to remind myself that, but man, I don't see how anybody couldn't have an awesome time if they could just get in there and do it. And this is gonna sound cliche because everybody tries to claim it, but I really mean it, and it's heart, because that's what I have. That's like the number one thing that I have. I've been hearing it for years that, you know, we just gotta get her some technique because she has a lot of heart. I just want it so much. I want it really bad. I want it when I'm in the cage. I want it when I'm outside of the cage, and you can't crush that. This is like the first thing that I've ever tried incredibly hard for in my life. I always thought it was cooler to not try, you know, in high school, like, oh, I didn't do homework, but I still got an A. And I think that, I'd like to think that a lot of people can identify with that, because it's easy to look at somebody else and be like, oh, well, you know, they were spoon-fed into wrestling when they were a baby, or like, well, they're just naturally really strong and fast. And I don't have any of those things going for me. I just try really, really, really hard, and it shows. And I'd like to think that that's kind of inspirational for other people, to think that if you just try really, 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 really hard, that you can be up there with all the other people who are gifted and talented and just naturals. But I really like exciting fights. I really like to stay in there and like stand and bang, and then what happens is that the crowd is like, oh yeah, that's good, look at this, and then they get excited, and then it like comes back to me, and then I get even more excited, and I'm like, I'm gonna keep going, I'm yeah, and then the crowd gets even more excited, and so like it goes back and forth. It's like a self-catalyzing reaction.
Honchak spent many years in academia, earning her bachelor's in molecular biology and a master's in ecology and genetics.
One of the scariest decisions I ever made was quitting my job that I went to school for forever to do this full time. That was one of the hardest decisions I made, and I even remember crying in my boss's office when I told him that I was quitting. And I think what it came down to is I knew I had something, and if I didn't take a shot at it, if I didn't try to see where I could go with this, I think I knew I was going to regret it, and I didn't want to regret it. So I jumped, and I did it, and it was terrifying, but it's been fun ever since. I don't regret going to school because I do think that higher education teaches you how to critically think. It teaches you a lot of ways to look at the world different, and I don't regret that I'm still paying student loans for a degree that I don't use. I think the term for me is a failed academic, you know, and I'm okay with that too. But yeah, I don't know what's coming next, and that's kind of how I've been since I've taken the jump, and I'm okay with that for now.
At an hour, she would be first waking to head to her post at a research laboratory. Honchak and her conditioning coach are out here at Brady Street Stadium instead. The champ braves this below-freezing morning to run bleachers glistening with hoarfrost, the first hint of the impending winter.
Barb is brilliant. She's a very, very thoughtful person. She has a huge amount of intelligence. When we talk about what our plans are, she understands exactly what we need to do, and she brings forth a huge amount of information about herself, which helps me help her. Nice, big. She's very determined. I mean, she is cold-heartedly determined to get stuff done. She takes a huge amount of abuse and punishment, and she just fights all the way through it. I was saying to her yesterday, you know, that there's never been a workout that I've given her that she hasn't rise to, and I never take it easy on her. I probably push her harder than anybody else, and she fights through every single one with grim determination. It's inspiring to see. It's inspiring to see a person want something so badly and put the effort forth. You know, she works her butt off and is constantly pushing her boundaries.
Fighting sometimes gets perceived wrongly as a very individual sport because you only see one person outside. You only see one person walking into the ring, and you don't see all the other people that had to bleed, sweat, cry, and get bruised and get broken. It takes so many training partners to get one person to where they have to be. I would not be where I am right now if it weren't for the team. There's no way, it's impossible.
If you don't have a good support system around you, I don't think you're going to make it very far. I think Militich Fighting Systems was really the first cohesive mixed martial art school. Pat put a lot of time into putting together the ground game with the wrestling, with the stand-up, and making it happen as one cohesive sport. It was really one of the birthplaces of MMA as we have it today.
There's more than 100 people every day probably that I end up sweating with, and getting that team feeling and that mental toughness and preparedness and confidence that it takes to be able to go out and do what it takes to win the fight. And so I know that for me to go out there and for me to do my best and to win, it's gonna feel like a win for everybody else.
For me to be able to bring a world title back to this gym means so much. These guys in this gym have done so much for me, and they've always been here, always supported me, always pushed me, and it's the least I can do.
The guys on this team have just set they've set the bar really high. There's some magazine that did a spread and it had all of them, it had Nick and Nate Diaz and Gilbert Melendez and Jake Shields, and they've all got belts in their hands, and they've all got big smiles and a sense of accomplishment and pride, and it would be so awesome to get to do that myself, to be able to feel like I'm kind of fulfilling, being part of the Gracie Fighter team.
There are so many good fighters here, so much history here that I don't want to let that die, you know? And I intend to keep that title so long as I'm at this gym. I'm not going to let them down.
Two storied schools of fighting have produced two hard-nosed, dogged warriors. In one corner, a challenger persistent in her efforts to bring her expertise to match the enormity of her determination in order to seize the crown.
Gosh, it's the goal is to be the champ, because it means that you beat everybody. It means that you've earned your spot, you've earned the right to fight the top people, and then once you got yourself into that fight against the top people, that you won.
And in the other, a champion who does not wait for the usurpers to take her down, but sharpens herself at each turn, primed to vanquish all comers.
Hard work is key, and that's all there is to it. It's hard work, and you need people around you that are willing to work hard too. And I think that really is it. Do I think somebody's going to come up behind me and have my number? Sure.
You know, maybe someday I'm going to get in the ring with someone who totally outclasses me, who's in 10 times better shape than me.
You know, there's always going to be somebody that comes up behind me who's younger and more athletic. So eventually somebody's going to come up and take my number.
They can be the most amazing fighter in the world, but they will never forget being in the ring with me.
Prove me wrong. You know, I am the best 125-pounder out there right now, and prove me wrong. Until you prove me wrong, I'm going to tell you that I am.
Smith is dauntless, unwavering in her search for honor and victory.
And right now, I definitely can walk around saying it's going to be a hella tough fight for her. It's going to be a tough as hell fight for her.
While Honchak grinds away to reveal the best edge of her blade, that hard steel center of a true heroine. Not to be peerless, but to engage in a battle with the most vigorous of contenders, and after all is done, emerge triumphant.
On December 7th, I'm not giving that title away.
The Peacemaker Smith! Here is Barb, Little Warrior Honchak!
Leslie Smith, this is a firefight! And there it is, Barb Honchak putting up a big performance here!
Watch Barb Honchak vs. Leslie Smith live Saturday, December 7th. Order INVICTA FC 7, only on pay-per-view.